Good evening. Welcome to Insight Meditation Community of Charlotte. I'm Clyde, one of the 6 Dharma leaders here at IMC Charlotte. And tonight we're going to continue our series, our Wednesday night series on the precepts, on the 5 precepts. Tonight we'll be looking at the 4th precept. This is the one that says, I undertake the precept to refrain from incorrect speech. Now, we've heard about the other 5 of the 3 precepts before this: refraining from destroying life, refraining from stealing, refraining from sexual misconduct. That was last week. Next week, you're going to hear about refraining from intoxicants that can lead to carelessness. But tonight, we're going to be looking at incorrect speech, refraining from incorrect speech. And of all of these precepts that we have, this one on incorrect speech is probably the one that we can address more often, we can work with on a daily basis. We almost have to work with it on a daily basis. When I think about, I'm pretty good when I know, I don't destroying life or causing harm every day. I'm pretty good about not stealing every day, trying not to do that. I don't no opportunity for sexual misconduct all the time. I do have to watch the intoxicants sometimes, but not every day. But every day I'm dealing with speech. Every day I'm talking. Every day I'm communicating. So even though this was one of the most difficult ones to work with, it also provides us with the most opportunity for practice because we can do it every day. So before we get going on here, I said this is incorrect speech, refraining from incorrect speech. We want to broaden this idea of speech a little bit. Thich Nhat Hanh says, every communication we put out into the world and every communication we take in from others has the potential to nourish, ease suffering, and create peace, or to poison, increase suffering, and create violence. So we want to expand this thing about communication. And really, it's like our speech. It's our talking, our speech, and our written communication. And that written communication can take several forms. Nowadays, emails, text. We're sending Twitters. We're doing Facebook communication. There are bumper stickers. There's Instagram. There are T-shirts. When we put a T-shirt on and it says something there, you're communicating something about yourself or something about your view of life. So all these ways that we're communicating, that we're sending out this stuff is we want to include that in as how we communicate. It could be a bodily gesture too, as far as that goes. Like, how are we communicating to others? And sometimes we're not going to talk about it much tonight, but sometimes about also we want to be careful about what we bring in, what's being communicated to us, how we can manage that also. But here we want to say that we want to engage, we want to refrain from improper or incorrect communication. So let's see, what is right speech then? What is it? What is it when I talk about right speech? What is it? And then we're going to look at right speech as opposed to, that would be the opposite of incorrect speech. And fortunately, of all the precepts, is probably more written in the teachings about speech than there is all the other ones. Right speech is the 3rd step on the Noble Eightfold Path. Right after you have right view and right intention, it starts the 3 steps of Sila: right speech, right action, and right livelihood. This is our ethical part of the Eightfold Path. And in here, there describes right speech. There are 4 kinds of right speech. You abstain from false speech, abstaining from slanderous or malicious speech, abstaining from harsh speech, and abstaining from idle chatter. So false speech, slanderous speech, harsh speech, and idle chatter. So let's look at each one of these. False speech. Is there intention to deceive? Are we lying? We want to abstain from lying, and we always want to tell the truth. Lying by omission is still a lie. It's still lying. If our silence would convey a lie, then we must speak. And this gets into an area where you have to do some discernment. Am I don't say something? Am I intention to deceive someone by not saying this? So we have to be careful about this and understand that it's incumbent upon us to tell the truth. If you know something, we must, and that's what is being called for at that moment. We need to tell the truth. The Buddha says there's a big danger in lying. The person who lies, who transgresses in this one thing, transcending concern for the world beyond, there's no evil he might not do. No evil he might not do. So this idea of lying is very, very important from an ethical sense in our practice. So that's false speech. In other words, we want it to be true. Slanderous speech or malicious speech is this idea, this intention to create division, to alienate people. It's destroy friendships. How do we get this where it's malicious? It's trying to hurt someone. And I think he used this a lot in the Sangha when there was things he wanted to make sure that people weren't trying to cause dissension within the Sangha. So we want to notice this also. Are we causing dissension within our family, at work, in our social environments? Did you say what so and so said about you? Now, I wasn't going to say anything, but this is what they said about you. So are we trying to create this idea of division or alienation? We want our speech to be uplifting for Bhante G. The third one is harsh speech. And this is hurting someone else's feelings. I mean, this can get into abusive speech. You're yelling, scolding someone, cursing at someone, reviling someone, reproving someone. You could be insulting someone, belittling them. Now, the other one that I have to work with or have been working on is this idea of sarcasm, being gentle with that sarcasm. Sarcasm is really based out of anger, and it can really cause bitterness and harm to someone. And things like I said, things that I thought were witty at one time are not necessarily witty. They may be hurtful to people, and I had to really, really watch that. Be careful. The thing was just to not say it, even though I thought it would be funny. So this is when we're talking about harsh speech, we want it to be gentle. And then the fourth one is probably our hardest one we have to work with. The fourth one is this idle chatter. It says avoid idle chatter. This is pointless talk, pointless communication, this small talk that we do. Now, the Buddha knew we had to work with people. We live in our families, relate people. We have families we have to work. We have social interactions that we communicate with people in. And he understands we're going to have some of that. We're going to have some of that, just getting along with each other is a way of talking with people and building communication. So the third thing, so we want to be aware that, and like another one, be aware when we get too engaged in this, because it could lead to harsh speech or slanderous speech, malicious speech, or false speech. We want to make sure we're not going to slide back into one of these. Social media is another way that we do this. Do we spend time on TikTok? Do we spend time on Facebook? Do we spend time on Instagram? Are we doing this just to distract ourselves from this present moment? That's the reason that we've noticed when we go on retreats and people are worried about, oh, we can't talk for this whole time. How am I going to be able to do this? And invariably people come back and say, that was the best thing about it. I didn't have to talk. Most of the things we talk about, we don't need to talk about almost. So we just want to be able to manage this idea. Are we spending too much time on social media? Are we avoiding the present moment? And how do we fall back into this one? Because I think idle chatter is probably one of the hardest ones for me, because the other ones, I kind of know when I'm doing the other ones. This one can creep up on you and all of a sudden you're doing it. So we have false speech, we want it to be true. Slanderous speech, we want to be uplifting. Harsh speech, we want it to be gentle. And then we want to kind of avoid this idea of idle chatter. We want to use our time wisely. So why is speech so important? I mean, there's a lot in the teachings on right speech. The thing we can do with right speech is each time we work with it, we can see the underlying intention behind what we're about ready to say or communicate. As we know from the karmic rules and laws, that if we act out of what the unwholesome intentions, we lead to suffering, more suffering for ourselves and others. If we act out of wholesome intentions, we lead to less suffering for ourselves and others. So we can see, what is this intention behind what I'm getting ready to say? Excuse me just a moment. So we have to look for the three defilements: greed, lust, fantasy, hatred, ill will, aversion, or delusion, not knowing, ignorance. So greed, hatred, and delusion, three defilements or some variation of those. What's behind what I'm getting ready to say? And Bhikkhu Bodhi explains this very well, and gives us an opportunity to see this. He says false speech. It's based on greed. I'm gaining some personal advantage. I'm lying to get something. I'm lying to hurt someone else. Hatred. I'm hurting someone. It could be hatred, ill will. And I'm telling a lie about this person. And it can be delusion, this idea of I'm creating this white lie. I can exaggerate to make myself feel really good. One thing I did notice in working with this in speech, improper speech, a lot of improper or incorrect speech is around building up the ego, supporting the ego, I making. Things that, well, I did this a little bit better, I can do this better, or I can do this, it's building up this ego. So false speech, we got to see this, what's behind I'm saying this? Am I saying this to make myself look good? See everybody how smart I am? Slanderous speech. That's generally hatred, aversion, resentment when we tear down, when we hurt somebody else. It could be some greed out of that. I could say something bad to try to, they really didn't do a really good job on that. I should be the person that gets this job, this promotion. There could be some greed wanting something. Harsh speech is really based in this anger, ill will, aversion. I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm acting out of that. It's very harsh. There's that ill will, trying to hurt someone. So there's that anger and aversion behind that. Idle chatter, Bhikkhu Bodhi says, that stirs up all the defilements. It's like this idea of delusion that we get out there like I exist. And other times I'm just talking to, and it keep creating this idea of I'm keep selfing. This idea of being seen. Oh, look at me, look what I've done. Facebook, what I put out there. Look at the smart thing I put out there, or what I repeated out there, or look at all the things I'm doing. Our trip that I went on. This is what I did. Now, some of this is going to be okay. We just have, and it's not that it's bad. It's just what to see. Why am I doing? Maybe I'm putting pictures out there of my trip to show my friends this is a good thing. That's it. If I'm putting out there that or I may be putting some political stuff out there, and if I'm doing it out of anger, then I have to be careful. What am I doing this out of? So we have to be really careful with this idle chatter along with social media. So here, the idea here is we want to begin to be able to see what's this intention behind what I'm going to say. And it's going to take mindfulness to be able to see that. We have to be very mindful of what we're going to say. And part of this is learning to be in silence. Idle chatter, not having to respond, to be on Facebook all the time. How can I be in a group of people and someone's gossiping or saying something, and am I comfortable with just standing there and being okay without saying anything, and feeling good about that? One of the benefits of proper speech that they talk about in the teachings is that people begin to listen to you more. They know that what you say is going to be true. It's not going to be harsh. It's not going to be slanderous. It's not going to be some idle thing. The more we begin to practice this or see this, we begin to change our how we speak. When do I speak? Do I need to speak now? The less I speak, probably the more people are going to pay attention to me when I do speak. And more respected, more esteemed. So in addition to knowing what these four are, there are also keys to right speech, 5 keys to right speech. And this is when a statement has 5 factors or keys. A statement is spoken at the right time, is spoken in truth, it is spoken gently, not harshly, it is spoken beneficially. It's not going to do any harm. It's for the good of someone. And is it spoken out of loving kindness or goodwill? So we know about, is it true? We want to know, we want it to be true. We don't want it to be false. We want it to be spoken affectionately or gently, not harsh. We want it to be beneficial. It's not slanders or malicious. It's spoken with a mind of loving kindness. We want to do good. It's coming from that place of goodness, that good intention, and it's spoken at the right time. And then sometimes the Buddha would say, you got to kind of meet each one of these, before we say something. This is a lot of times this was used when monks needed to address another monk about something, or you need to talk to someone about something, and you say, have I met these criteria? Am I doing this at the right time? Can this person hear what I'm going to say? Sometimes you tell people stuff and they just don't hear it. They just don't hear it. So we got to be aware of each one of those. But these are kind of, is it true? Is it kind? Is it beneficial? Does it harm anyone? Is it the right time? Now, for me, this was more about, it's hard when you're getting ready to say something in day-to-day conversation to check all these out. So what I really wanted to think we should focus on is like, this is a daily practice. It takes mindfulness to do this. And that mindfulness is going, what is the intention behind what I'm about to say? That's the first thing that we should focus on. What is my intention about what I'm going to say? Is it an intention coming out of greed, hatred, delusion, or is it coming out of harmfulness? Does it come out of compassion, loving kindness? That's what we want to know. We want to be able to look at that and say, oh, I'm getting ready to say something. What's my intention about that? Now, if I have time, I can look and say, is it the right time? Is it spoken the truth? Is it affectionate, gentle? That's going to take, we can plan those conversations a bit better. We need to make sure that whatever that intention is behind what I'm getting ready to say is wholesome. So we want to make sure that we are that it's not false, that it's not malicious or slanders, that it's not harsh, but it's going to be gentle, and that we're going to avoid idle chatter. Excuse me. Last week, Larry mentioned that Thich Nhat Hanh had kind of expanded these out a little bit. He called them, this is the fourth precept is now the fourth mindfulness of training. And this is what he says. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the inability to listen to others, I vow to cultivate loving speech and deep listening in order to bring joy and happiness to others and relieve others of their suffering. Knowing that words can create happiness or suffering, I vow to learn to speak truthfully with words that inspire self-confidence, joy, and hope. I am determined not to spread news that I do not know to be certain, and not to criticize or condemn things of which I am not sure. I will refrain from uttering words that can cause division or discord, or that can cause the family or community to break. I will make all efforts to reconcile and resolve all conflicts, however small. Thank you for your attention tonight.